What's up, guys? Back with a brand new edition of the Sports Rundown Radio. Again, joining us is Caynan Bird and Ben Lejeune. Tyler is not going to be in this week's video. He decided to take a nap instead of film. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Starting off with the NFL, Saints keep on rolling. They're 4-1 on the season. Last week, they beat Tampa Bay 31-24. Teddy Bridgewater was 26 for 34, had 314 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Jameis Winston, on the other hand, was 15 for 27, had 204 yards and 2 touchdowns. It seems like now that with Drew Brees out, it seems like, Teddy Bridgewater is stepping up. A lot of people were kind of nervous, especially during the Rams game, whether or not Teddy Bridgewater was going to step up or not. Well, it seems like he's fallen into place perfectly. He's undefeated when he's starting. And, I mean, it just keeps on rolling. While Tampa Bay is not that good of a team, they did handle them pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a lot of people, like you said, they were throwing some red flags out there that they were expecting Drew Brees to be out 6 to 8 weeks. They're expecting him to come back after the bye week to play against, I believe it's Atlanta. And a lot of people were throwing speculation at Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, even though they got the win that first week against the Cowboys, he didn't throw for a touchdown. So a lot of people were worried that he wasn't going to be able to live up to his offensive potential. But we've seen him step up. I believe Drew's worked with him a little bit on his passing game, and it's definitely flourished these past couple of weeks. He's gotten a lot of touchdowns. He's found the end zone a bunch. And, I mean, like you said, he's 3-0. A lot of people were worried that we were going to probably go 2-3, 3-3 in the stretch without Brees. But Teddy Bridgewater is definitely shutting out all the haters right now. He's, doing way better than any of us expected, especially me. I was one of those haters, too. I was expecting Saints to, kind of fumble through the midway part of the season. Maybe you have to try to come back when Drew Brees got healthy to try to even crack the playoffs. But right now, Saints sitting atop the NFC South at 4-1, leading by 2 games. And it's good to see him doing it as well as he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like Caynan said, not expecting Teddy Bridgewater to play such a big role and coming in, stepping in, getting the wins for the team, but also, like, I've been seeing some videos of, like, Cam Jordan, the defensive tackle, making some, before the game huddle pump ups and, having him as a leader and, especially Teddy Bridgewater stepping up, man. He's just doing a great thing for the New Orleans Saints. I think it's a good thing for him.
And I want to build off one right quick thing before Chandler, you go on. Ben was talking about how a lot of these guys are pumping up the team huddle. Drew Brees was always that guy that always got the team hyped up, gave those motivational, inspirational speeches pregame. We saw him pass the torch, I believe it was last week, to Demario Davis to let him lead the pregame chant. And they brought back the old 2009 1-2 win for you chant that Drew was iconic for back in that Super Bowl winning season. It was a playoff of an old military chant, and it just caught so much attention from the media. It became synonymous with Drew Brees and his style of play. And it's good to see that they're bringing that back. I mean, that was such a monumental season for the Saints, and they're trying to build on that and hopefully get back to the Super Bowl again this season.
All righty. So with the next story, we'll go ahead and get right into it. Jay Gruden, head coach for the Washington Redskins. He has been terminated by the Washington Redskins. He had an 0-5 start on the season. And if you think about it, the Redskins weren't that hot anyway when he was the head coach. As the Redskins head coach, he was 35-49, had 1 tie. I believe he's done great things. He was with, I believe, the Buccaneers before as an offensive assistant, but he just I don't believe he's that good of a head coach. Now, you can say the Redskins don't have the players or whatnot, but I don't know. I don't see his coaching career going too far after this.
I mean, you see the Redskins, they've been struggling for a long time. They need a good offensive-minded head coach. They got that young rookie quarterback in there. They got a lot of young players. So we need to see a coach that knows how the game works. Both the Gruden brothers have had their struggles in their coaching careers, both John and Jay. But we see him come out to an 0-5 start, and the Redskins organization was like, hey, man, if you're not going to get us wins, we can't really keep you around. I mean, they got a big fan base up there in D.C. that loves their Redskins. And, I mean, I'm sure there were some Jay Gruden lovers that didn't want to see him go. But, when the time's getting tough for your football team, you just got to make some hard cuts. And I know that was probably the best decision for the Redskins looking forward to their future. They're not looking like they're going to make the playoffs this season. So not sure exactly who they're going to hire as their next head coach, but hopefully they can find someone new.
Yeah, I don't think the record he was he was showing the team in the league, 0-5 starting out. It's just unacceptable with the organization. You can't really – you just got to perform better than that. I don't know if it's drafting-wise, trading-wise, or his players, or the way he handles practice, the way he – I don't know. It's just unacceptable.
All righty. On to the next story. We're talking about, 0-5 starts. Well, two teams are left that are undefeated, the 49ers and the Patriots. The Patriots, they have beat the Steelers, the Dolphins, the Jets, the Bills, and the Redskins. Now, those teams aren't that good, let's be honest. Steelers, they beat them week 1 pretty handily, 33-3. But and they did have Big Ben then, I believe. I believe he hurt his elbow in the beginning of that game. But, they haven't played too many of those higher class teams, I guess you could say. Those upper tier teams. Their closest game was 6 points, won by 6 points versus the Bills. The final was 16-10. Next week is the Giants. The Giants, some people will argue with me, but the Giants are pretty good this year. Daniel Jones has been performing pretty well. I don't know if Saquon's going to be back or not. Haven't really checked up on that. I believe he is still questionable. But if they can get Saquon back, it's definitely going to be a good game versus the Giants and the Patriots. Now, next up to the next team, the 49ers. They are 4-0. They beat the Bucks, Bengals, Steelers, and Browns. Now, same thing. They haven't really faced a higher tier team. Next week they will. They will play the Rams. The Rams are 3-2 on the season. Now, their record doesn't really show the talent they have. Now, the Rams have been struggling with that injury bug, but I believe the Rams will pull this one out. And after next week, maybe the Patriots stay undefeated. But I believe both teams next week will no longer be undefeated. Any comments on that, y'all?
Well, we saw, like you've been saying, these two undefeated teams haven't really been playing any of those top-tier championship caliber teams. We saw the same thing with the Cowboys. They were undefeated until they played the Saints. Even without Drew Brees, we still see how the Saints are able to pick up and show that they're still that high-caliber offense and that star-studded defense that they have always been and hopefully will be for the rest of the season. And another thing you got to credit to New England is their defense. They have definitely stepped up this season. This is one of the best defenses I've seen in New England in a long time, especially if you have them on your fantasy team. They've been scoring probably 20 points a week. And with the 49ers, they got young Jimmy G under the helm, and he's been doing great since he came over to San Francisco after being Tom Brady's backup for a couple of years in New England. So we see him flourishing well, developing into a nice quarterback. He could possibly be a franchise quarterback for them. I like what I'm seeing in San Francisco, even though they haven't really played anybody. I still like what I'm seeing, and I think they can probably win their division and make the playoffs. All right, guys. Next up, we're moving on to the MLB. We're getting right towards the home stretch now. We've started the first round of the playoffs. We mentioned the wild card games last week. We saw both the Nationals and the Rays win their wild card game. So right now we see the Yankees and the Twins. Yankees took that series in a 3-game sweep, absolutely dominated the Twins hitting and pitching wise. I didn't call it. I thought it was going to go to at least 4, but Yankees proved me wrong, and they showed up to play. So we see the Yankees being the first team to advance to the ALCS. We saw today, actually, Game 5 of one side of the NLDS between the Cardinals and the Braves. It was a 2-2 tie going into Game 5, and the Cardinals unloaded with a 10-run first inning, knocked Atlanta starter Mike Foltynewicz out of the game in the first inning. And other than that, not much offense was scored. Final score to Game 5 of that series was 13-1 in favor of the Cardinals. But, I mean, we saw St. Louis step up. They came into Atlanta, a very hard place to play, and they proved everybody wrong. And they're going to the NLCS. As we're filming this right now, it's currently a 3-3 tie between the Dodgers and the Nationals in Game 5 of the NLDS. So it's going to be a toss-up to see who goes to face on the Cardinals in the NLCS. And as of right now, it's going into a Game 5 between Houston and Tampa Bay. That'll be played on Thursday. And we saw Tampa Bay get behind 2-0 to the Astros, and they came back and absolutely proved the world wrong. They came back 1-2 at home. They're going to have to go into that very difficult Minute Maid Park and face Garrett Cole. And honestly, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to pull it out, but the odds are in their favor, as in the past 16 times where a team has gotten down 2-0 in an ALDS, and had to play on the road for the final Game 5. They have won 10 of the last 16. So right now, fortune favors the bold, and fortune is favoring the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah, I'm gonna eat my own words here. I call the Braves going into the next round, onto the next round in the playoffs. But it seems like they couldn't quite hang on to it. Really wish the Braves could have gone on, but like you said, big game coming up though with the Astros and the Rays. The Astros are they were kind of the World Series favorites. So very shocking if the Astros don't pull through and go on to the next round. All right, now starting up with the NBA, Lakers dominate versus the Warriors in the preseason matchup. AD led with 22 points and had 10 rebounds. LeBron, he had 15 points, 3 rebounds, and 8 assists. Steph Curry had 18 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. Kind of see those stars stepping up like we said they were. Again, Klay Thompson is out. I believe he had ACL surgery in his knee. Draymond Green was limited pretty much, but if you're facing Anthony Davis, you're not scoring, So that's pretty much it with the Lakers game. They won pretty handily. But next up will be personally my favorite team, the Pelicans. They won over the Atlanta Hawks 133-109. Brandon Ingram led the team with 19 points. He had 6 rebounds, 1 assist. Zion, he had 16 points with 7 boards and 3 assists. Drew Holiday had 21 points. I'm sorry, Brandon Ingram did not lead with 19 points. Drew Holiday led with 21 points. Hawks, they gave a lot of time to their bench. But I believe Trae Young had 26 minutes. He had 9 points, 4 boards, and 11 assists in those 26 minutes. Again, they gave a lot of time to their bench players, kind of seeing how everything's going to work. But anything else y'all want to say about the NBA? Maybe opening day, or because again, this is all preseason. This isn't really too serious, but any matchups y'all are looking forward to this year?
Well, one thing I do want to mention is the Pelicans actually played Wednesday night, which is the night we're recording it. I just finished watching it before we started recording this. The Pelicans beat the Bulls by a final score of 127-125. Seems like a very high-scoring game, very competitive game through and through. But that's not how it was. Pelicans at one point trailed by 23 late in the third quarter, ended up going into the fourth quarter, trailing by 21, ended up coming back, outscoring the Chicago Bulls 41-18 in the fourth quarter, and they take the win. And it just shows how this team doesn't have any quit in them. They come in to Chicago on the road. They started out hot. They created, I believe, 4 turnovers within the first 4 minutes of the game starting. They started out hot, but they kind of crumbled there towards the middle quarters. But they ended up coming back, getting the win. Zion led the team with 26 points, shot a very efficient 12 for 13 from the floor. And, I mean, we're seeing Zion. I mean, we all knew he was going to be the face of the Pelicans franchise, but he's definitely stepping into those shoes, proving everyone correct that he will be the new face of this franchise. And he only played, I believe, 29 minutes. He played most of the entire first half, and I believe played about half of the third quarter. But for the rest of that game, he sat out while his bench players worked. Players like Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Josh Hart were draining threes as soon as they came off the bench. And that's another thing I want to point out. Pelicans are doing good on the long ball this season. It's something they struggled with for the past, I don't know, probably 5 years, since maybe they had Ryan Anderson who could shoot a little bit from deep. But they finally found some guys like J.J. Redick and Lonzo who can drop some balls from beyond the arc, and that's really what's going to help them advance far into the playoffs this season. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them and their new offense and how everything's going to turn out for them.
Kind of with the NBA, dude. I mean, dude, there's so many like matchups and everything that we're going to be excited to see. Everybody's got at least, there's a few teams out there that like with 2 to 3 superstars, and especially for the Pelicans, I think we're all excited to see them, especially in hometown team, and because it's been a while since they've been good. I mean, you can back me up on this. It's been a while. There's nobody really attends any games anymore, but I mean, kind of like the tickets. The tickets skyrocket.
Sorry, Ben. I don't mean to cut you off right here, but talking about the tickets, so they've been struggling to sell tickets this season. I mean, not this season, in the past few seasons. When Zion was drafted, don't quote me on this, but I believe season tickets not only doubled, but this week they had their first open practice, and you still get tickets, so it's not kind of just show up and whatnot. You still got to get tickets to see how many people come. But they sold out on practice. I'm going to quote Allen Iverson here. We're talking about practice. Not a game, but practice. So they sold out on practice. Just to show you how much hype and anticipation is going into this season, not only with Zion, but a lot of this young talent. And then Drew Holiday, the silent cornerstone of this New Orleans Pelicans team. He's been through it all. He's always been there, whether he's been in the shadows, whether or not he's been on the front page. He's still been there. And I'd say he's definitely the cornerstone of this team. While he may not be a superstar, he's definitely a quality point guard there for the New Orleans Pelicans.
Drew Holiday is one of the most underrated point guards in the league. You'll hear me say this time and time again. He's not one of your offensive threats. He's a big defensive guy. He's been selected to the All-NBA first team numerous times in his career, but I believe he only has a few All-Stars to his credit. He's frequently overlooked, to say the least, mainly because during his prime with the Pelicans, he played on a team with Anthony Davis. So you're going to constantly work the ball through him. Anthony Davis is leading in points, rebounds. And so Drew didn't really get as much of a role in that Pelicans offense. But I believe this season we're going to see him take on a larger role, put in a couple more minutes. We got some new guys coming in. We got some young guys like Lonzo and Josh Hart. And I think you're going to see a bigger season right here from Drew Holiday.
All righty, that'll do it for the NBA. Next up, my personal favorite, college football. Joe Burrow, hometown hero for the Louisiana State University Tigers. last week versus Utah State, he had 6 total touchdowns. He was 27 for 38, had 344 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now, I saw this thing where he has I'm trying to quote it. I'd have to find it, but he has more touchdowns. I don't think including this past Utah State game, but he has more touchdowns than he does incompletions. Just showing you how efficient of a passer he is. And he also can run. He ran for 42 yards and had a touchdown on the game. And a lot of those runs were, the play kind of fell apart. Everybody was covered pretty well, and it was a long third down, and he scrambled and got the first down. And one thing I love about Joe Burrow's run game is he does not slide. He is going to hit, he's either going to try to run you over or he's going to take the lick. He's not going to slide. He plays with his heart on his sleeve, and it's evident. He's definitely a leader of this LSU team. He not only is an emotional leader, he's a leader on the field. He gets the job done, and he's definitely my vote for the Heisman.
Yeah, right now he's number 3 in the Heisman contention. He's played as many games as Tua Tagovailoa, and he has the exact same touchdown ratio, 23 through the air and 2 on the ground. He matched Tua this week. Alabama had that bye week, so Joe was able to catch up to him. And, we see Joe putting up insane offensive numbers, not necessarily compared to Tua. Tua's got way more through the air, but the Tigers are just putting up over 40 points a game. They scored at least 40 points in every game they played this season. So we're seeing that offense finally click, being led by a guy like Joe Burrow. I agree with you, Chandler. He's going to be my vote for Heisman, but we're going to have to see what happens when he comes to SEC play because he's going to start facing these tougher defenses. Florida's claiming to be the real DBU over here, even though everybody knows it's LSU. He's going to have to face Alabama, who's got an insanely star-studded young defense that's full of ball hawk corners and safeties. So we're going to have to see when it comes down to crunch time, pressure time, can Joe Burrow hold up under pressure? I think yes. I've seen him do it in the past couple of seasons, and I'm not afraid to say I think Joe Burrow can lead LSU to the college football playoffs and possibly to a national championship this year.
Well, Caynan, I thought I took a hot take. That was definitely a hot take right there. We'll go ahead and start with the SEC schedule this week. Again, number 5 LSU faces off against number 7 Florida. South Carolina faces number 3 Georgia this week. Number 1 Alabama is going to play number 24 ranked Texas A&M, which, let's be honest, Texas A&M does not deserve to be in the top 25. I believe that's a true take, not a hot take. Mississippi State will face Tennessee. Ole Miss will face Missouri, and Arkansas will face Kentucky. Again, like you said, SEC play starts. We'll kind of see, we can see who holds their own here. Obviously Alabama, obviously Georgia, but it's whether or not, I'm going to say it. It's whether or not LSU can hold their own right here. Big start versus number 7 Florida in the SEC. With that schedule starting, we played Vanderbilt, but let's be honest, Vanderbilt's not what you consider an SEC team. They're kind of just there. Same thing with Missouri and Tennessee, and sometimes South Carolina, depends on the season. But they're facing off versus a very good team, number 7 ranked, and I believe if LSU wins this, we will be in the top 4, maybe top 3. South Carolina is unranked, so in Georgia's in that number 3 spot. I believe if LSU wins versus Florida, I believe Georgia will drop to number 4, and LSU will take that number 3 spot. But that's we're talking about the college football playoffs. Top 4 teams go into the college football playoff, and 1 and 4 play each other, 2 and 3 play each other for the chance at a national championship. Ohio State. They have a 74% chance to make the playoff, 25% chance to win it all. Alabama has a 69% chance to make the playoff, 27% chance to win it all. Coming in next, you have Clemson has a 65% chance to make the playoff, 15% chance to win it all. Oklahoma and Georgia are tied at 45% to make the playoff. Oklahoma has 8% chance to win it all. Georgia has 10% to win it all. And LSU has 31% chance to make the playoff and 7% chance to win it all.
And, the reason I think that they're giving us such a low chance to make the playoffs and win it all is because of our strength of schedule. We see LSU playing 3 top-ranked teams within the next 5 weeks of the season. We see this weekend coming in, number 7, Florida. The next weekend, we're going to be playing number 10, Auburn. And then in a couple weeks following that, we're going to be playing the number 1 ranked team in the country in Tuscaloosa, which is going to be a feat in its own. But the thing is, some of these teams don't really deserve to be as highly ranked as they are. Don't get me wrong, they're good teams. But I believe personally, my opinion, strength of schedule should be much more seriously taken into consideration by the playoff committee, by the bowl committee, by the rankings committee. But because you got teams up here, I mean, I'm not going to discredit Alabama for not playing anybody yet, but you got teams like Clemson. They haven't played anybody yet. They almost lost to North Carolina. Game almost went to overtime. They almost lost on a failed 2-point conversion attempt. And they're still ranked as high as they are. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're still good teams. They got a Heisman candidate in Trevor Lawrence. But honestly, I just don't feel like some of these teams deserve to be as ranked highly as they are. Even though, despite the fact that they're undefeated, I feel like strength of schedule should be taken more highly into account when ranking these teams.
Yeah, especially in the ACC. Clemson has, they have beat Alabama 2 years in a row for the national championship. But if you look at their strength of schedule, it's not good, dude. They're playing doo-doo teams. I hate to break it to you.
When everybody talks about Clemson, they talk about that massive 20. If they win the season out, which they are predicted to do, they will have a 29-game win streak, spanning through the regular season and the college football playoffs. Now, that's a great win streak. Don't get me wrong, but if you look at the caliber of teams they played, you're going to get Alabama twice. I'm going to give them credit. They did beat Alabama twice, but they play these ACC teams every year, and they are not nearly as high the quality as some of these SEC teams that we see. We see LSU going 10-3, but their losses are to very, very good, highly ranked teams that could possibly beat the number 1 team, such as Clemson. I mean, we see LSU lose to Alabama almost every year, and we're still ranked in the top 7 by the end of the year because of the way we play, because of the caliber of teams we play. I just believe that it's being taken into consideration about who we play. It's more about wins. I get it, but I believe that should be more of a secondary option rather than like maybe points scored throughout the entire season. Because if you play teams with terrible defenses all season, of course you're going to run the score up. Of course you're going to look like you're dominating every team you play. But you play these SEC teams every week, they're going to be low-scoring affairs because most of these teams have really great defenses that step up and play week in, week out, these same caliber teams. I mean, we see four SEC teams ranked in the top 10 right now.
Yeah, one thing I do want to point out, though, is the reason why I personally believe Clemson has beat Alabama in the past 2 years is because Alabama is playing SEC teams week in and week out. They have to, pretty much open their entire playbook. And at the end of the season, it's all on film. It's all being there, it's all there to see what's coming in. Because if Clemson's playing doo-doo teams, they don't have to open. They don't even have to get to page 10 into their playbook. They have so much more in their playbook But Alabama had to open it all because they had to play SEC. Now, if Clemson came into the SEC, which please do, please, I wish that Clemson would come into the SEC because technically they are in South Carolina. That one thing I do, just on a side note, I wish they would come into the SEC. But if Clemson, played difficult teams, they would have to open more of their playbook. It's almost like LSU. The first game of the season, they played Georgia Southern. Coach O said they barely scraped the top of the LSU offense. And the more you go deeper into these tough opponents, the more you're going to have to open it. Because, in football, you film study. You see what's coming. You look at the footage. And with Clemson, they see what Alabama's going to do because they have opened their entire playbook. With Clemson, it's like, oh, man, we still have a few tricks up our sleeve. Alabama's used all of them to win against SEC opponents. Alrighty, that'll do it for this edition of the Sports Rundown Radio. Big shout out to Ben and Caynan for helping on this podcast. Big shout out to Philip Fauché for running the Sports Rundown on behind the scenes. Also, big shout out to Ben for editing all the videos and running the Twitter. If you've watched all the way through, make sure to leave a comment saying who do you believe is going to win the college football playoff. And again, this is going to be posted on YouTube, but we are looking at other avenues as to, posting it on a podcast type thing. Because when you watch it on YouTube, all you can do is watch YouTube. And a lot of people do it while they're driving. So comment and say whether or not you want us to leave it on YouTube or do it more of a podcast style. And let us know if you want us to do it more laid back as well. Kind of just us talking, not really as formal as what we do now. But make sure to comment and like and subscribe. You probably didn't listen all the way through, but if you did, thanks. And I believe that'll do it for this edition of the Sports Rundown. For Caynan, for Ben, for Chandler to Cody. God willing, I'll talk to y'all later.